What's good, friends? This is episode 50 of the Gamecast coming at you. Since they're split from Activision, Bungie has been trekking a path of their own towards what their true vision for the Destiny franchise would be. And with this week's news surrounding the content roadmap for Destiny 2, that vision is beginning to take shape. So, this week, Mike and I examine the level of influence third-party publishers have on developers from a communication standpoint and how important transparency is with a player base. Also, a former Xbox lead shows full faith in developers when addressing the PlayStation 5's SSD advantage while developing for the Xbox Series X. But will the difference truly be as drastic and dramatic as we all seem to think it will be? Plus, what's more important to see at Xbox's July event? Halo Infinite gameplay, the Initiative's project, or the price of the Xbox Series X? We discuss all of this and much more on the newest episode of the Gamecast.
Now the fun begins.
Richard.
Stop! You violated the law.
Welcome back to another episode of the Gamecast, your weekly go-to podcast for all things Xbox, Xbox Game Pass, and PC gaming, including news, rumors, and conversations around them damn good video games. You can catch new episodes of the show when they drop each and every Friday morning on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, and all other major podcast services. So be sure to subscribe to us, like us, review us, all that jazz, wherever you get a podcast at, and follow us on Twitter at GC Podcast. Stay up to date with everything regarding the show, video games like, and our dope giveaways. As always, I'm your host, Travis White, aka Travis, on most internet platforms, and joining me, my partner in crime, Mike P-Pack. What's good, Mike? What's going on? And what have you been playing on our now 50th episode of the show? 50,
the big
5-0.
The big 5-0.
You know, it's weird because we're kind of caught in that middle of it's like, oh, you know, it's the 50th episode. We should definitely say something about how dope it is that we've been doing this for 50 episodes. But then it's like, well, the year anniversary is coming up in like a couple weeks. So like maybe save it for that. We have a couple things planned in general between now and then. And I think we're going to do more pomp and circumstance for the year. But 50 episodes, if I can fucking talk. You know me, I always have trouble doing that. 50 episodes. It's been really fun doing this with you, Mike. You know, so for the 50th time now, what's good, what's going on, and what have you been playing, man?
Yeah, man. I've been good. Just living my life, you know. As far as what I've been playing, though, I've just been playing I've been playing a ton of Age of Empires 2 Definitive Edition still. It seems like, you know, sometimes they'll break the game with patches, but it seems like every patch they've been putting out, like, pretty consistently has just been like it's been getting better and better. So been enjoying that. They fixed Halo 3 on MCC on Xbox, so I've been playing a lot of that just because there's draft tournaments that are happening. Basically, you sign up as an individual, captains are picked, and then, you know, you're drafted and what have you. So I've been playing a lot of that because it is going to be coming to PC very soon. I saw a tweet from 343 Postums that they are getting ready. They have like one more big bug that they're trying to fix that's a blocker to the Insider build, and then they'll be releasing Insider for PC, which means Halo 3 is very close to coming out on PC. So I've just been playing a lot of that, and yeah, I'm looking to get into some Command & Conquer very soon, but I've just had other like life expenses kind of pop up in my life that have kind of caused me to not be able to just justify buying video games. It's just, you know, sometimes you just have to be an adult, which kind of sucks, but it is what it is.
It does. Yeah, being an adult does suck. I'm not going to lie. It's cool to have, you know, a source of income and be able to do that, but, you know, kind of being an adult sucks, man. Like, there's too much shit. I just want to play video games all day, you know?
Right?
Like I am thankful that let's put it this way. I think we're both thankful that we've been able to maintain a financial income pretty much at almost the same exact level we did before during all of fucking everything that's been going on, which is dope, and we've been able to, in my case, work from home and, you know, be able to make money still, but, you know, it's very easy, I'm not gonna lie, to get distracted, and, you know, you do all your work, and then you just see, you know, look over, and Steam's right there, my Xbox is sitting over there, No, gotta work, but on my end, man, I feel you definitely on that, where it's like, especially I've had a couple of expenses come up where it's like, hey, we're going on vacation in a couple weeks. Cool, maybe I shouldn't go out and like upgrade a monitor or something like that, where you gotta make those things that are more like, hey, I have life expenses. Once again, if I could talk, So it's just one of those things. But I definitely feel that. I definitely know all these different things. Like I was telling you, we have to go get our premarital counseling for our wedding that's coming up this fall, and did not expect it to be like $200 to go and do that. I'm like, what?
Right.
$200? What?
I mean, I would just tell the priest, like, I don't have, like, buddy, I don't have sex, so you don't have to worry about premarital sex.
Right, that's the thing. It's like, well, one
like, I'm still a virgin,
foremost,
buddy.
Like, yeah, who premarital sex? No, thank you. Like, who would even think that's the right thing to do? Like, I'm a child of God. Like, no offense to anybody. We're joking, by all means. So anyways, what I've been playing, just kind of mostly dipping in and out of a lot of things. Still playing a little Valorant here and there. On the console side, it's been kind of light because a lot of the stuff that is on console, I've been trying to, in terms of like what I normally play, third-party wise and whatnot, even games on Game Pass that I would traditionally play on my console. Now that I've upgraded my PC a little bit, I've been trying to play them on there just because it's, you and I are kind of on the same boat. We're much more, hey, we prefer frames over necessarily like 4K output or even like 1440. Like, I'd rather have really good frames than anything. So I've been trying to play a lot of the games on there now that I've upgraded a few parts of my PC. So been kind of dipping in and out of a lot of stuff. But one thing that I have gotten back into, or well, I shouldn't say gotten back into, one thing I've really wanted to now give a try is Destiny 2. Watched the like press conference, if you want to call it, their direct, if you want to call it, yesterday that they had. We're recording on a Wednesday, so Tuesday yesterday. I've dipped my toe in and out of Destiny before, but never have fully committed, never have gone in, but never truly said, yo, this is a game I actually want to sit down and invest serious time into. But decided the guys that were kind of funny were doing a reacts to it, and I was just kind of doing some actual work at the time. I was like, I'll throw it on in the background just to have something to watch, even though I'm not that into Destiny. And the way that they've rolled out the content and the transparency and the things that they're doing, and we'll kind of talk about it because one of the things we're gonna kind of touch in the show, since it's relevant news and big news, the way that they're talking about all the content they're doing, and an easy way to get me into games as services is to, hey, here's the content that's out now, here's what's coming, here's when you can expect it, you're getting all of this, yada yada, like actually having a roadmap as to why I should invest my time in it, because we're all adults, we only have X amount of time to be able to actually spend on video games, so it's like, my time's valuable, I want to go in, and I want to go in with a purpose. And even if that purpose is just, man, I love the gameplay, and it's Bungie, their gunplay is going to be fucking immaculate to begin with, because of how great it's been for so long, that, going into it, you just want to make sure, like, even if it's just that, like, but to me, with a live service game, me personally, I need to know that I'm not wasting my time, and there's them showing, hey, we have this planned within the next, you're getting this event right now, hey, there's the expansions coming out in the fall on this date, and guess what, here's the next 2 expansions over the next 2 years, and when you can expect them. So, to me, it was really transparent, and I was like, fuck, I kind of want to try Destiny. Downloaded it yesterday, played it for like 2 hours, and granted, that's only like 2 hours is nothing for a game like that. I'm not even through all the beginning stuff, but it really scratched an itch I didn't know I had, and I really was enjoying it. I'm like really excited to hopefully get done with a lot of stuff and go play more of it tonight. Like, so, we'll see how long that lasts, but I was really digging it, and I would like to see where it goes, because I don't really have a game outside of like Valorant, Siege, things like that, but I've never been a looter shooter guy. I've never really dug Borderlands a ton. Respected from afar, more or less, that I get why I get why people love this stuff. I've always been more of a dungeon crawler looter, like a Diablo or something like that, but
yeah, to me, like, the difference really lies, and you just kind of, alluded to it, but the difference for me is, like, growing up, I played a lot of Diablo. So like I love Diablo, and like Borderlands is just enough like Diablo that all it makes me want to do is go play Diablo, right? Like like when I was playing Borderlands 1, all it made me want to do is just go play Diablo 2 Lord of Destruction. So, which they did come out with a new ladder reset, so it's probably about time for me to, make a sorceress. And well, it's late now, I won't be up in the top, but last time they did a ladder reset, I was in like the top 10 on normal because I got my sorceress up to like an 89 or something. But then people obviously catch you. There were bots and stuff that get up to 99 and stuff, so you get past. But if you do it early enough, your name's on the leaderboards, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely.
But continue. I didn't mean to completely
No. By all means, no. That's totally great to throw in there. No, but definitely, I totally get that. But yeah, we'll see where it goes. I mean, I'm not gonna, if I don't feel comfortable or don't want to commit. Plus, I know we always say this is an Xbox show, but I'm gonna mention again, The Last of Us Part 2 comes out next week. You can bet your ass I'm locking myself in a room and playing that all weekend. Like, that's just what I'm planning to do with my time, so I know I won't be playing Destiny then, or really probably doing anything else with my life that weekend, because that's been one of my most anticipated games of all time. So, we'll see where it goes, but if it's another game that I could just have in my Steam library of, oh yeah, I haven't played that in a while, let me jump back in and just see how it is, cool. It could be that game that, there's nothing really that's, like, striking my fancy, but I want to play a game, like, I want to play something, but I don't know what, I'll play some Destiny, like, if it can be that, cool, awesome. So, before we get into the news, just a little housekeeping. EA Play, EA's event that coincides with E3 traditionally, usually when they, show gameplay for newer games and things coming up, Anthem, all that shit. It has been bumped back from June 11th, which this goes live on the 12th, so clearly it wasn't yesterday, that it is being bumped back to next week, June 18th. And there are a few things that we're going to talk about in the show that do pertain to that EA Play event that, maybe you want to check out and make sure you're there, because I'm sure we'll be getting, due to the PS5's game reveal that was when you listen to this on release, it was yesterday, I'm sure we're going to see some, third-party titles that are coming out rumored. The new Black Ops entry from Call of Duty is going to be there, and, on EA's side, we could potentially see Battlefield or something like that be teased at that event. So we're probably going to see more of, titles from there. Hell, even Dragon Age. So it may be good to check that out if you're just wanting to, definitely scratch that next gen itch and see more gameplay and, games that will be coming that you can play on your consoles from that. So, with that being said, Mike, let's get into the news this week. So, starting out, developers making Xbox Series X games will learn to address PS5's SSD advantage, says Xbox lead. This comes from Sarif Saeed over on VG247. As always, links in the description for all of these articles. Make sure you go over there and give everyone clicks, spread that love, and make sure, they get a little scratch, you scratch their back, because right now, clearly, times are hard for everybody, and views, clicks, all that matters even more than ever. So make sure you just go over there and support everyone's writing that we do go through on here. So, developers working on multi-platform games will find a way to get around Xbox Series X's relatively slower SSD compared to PS5's. Microsoft's William Stillwell, who currently manages the company's mixed reality program, spent years at Xbox working on backwards compatibility, xCloud, and Xbox platform services. Stillwell recently a guest on the Iron Lords podcast, where he was asked about the PS5's immersive SSD tech, how faster it is compared to the Xbox Series X solution, and whether it will even matter. Although the veteran developer pointed out that he doesn't speak for the entire company, he said he has an idea about how this disparity will be handled. Quote, I'll say two things with that. One, I understand that it's a marketing point and a high point, and I think I said in the last podcast we did, I'm really impressed with what they've done in the architecture with their drive, and I think they'll be able to do really cool stuff with it, said Stillwell. I also don't think it's as impressive over what you'll be able to do with the Xbox Series X, and so I have high confidence with that in that team. I will also say, look, I reserve the right to wake up smarter tomorrow and someone may prove me wrong and we'll learn. The one thing I have learned is to never underestimate game developers' ability to take advantage of something and work around it, but that works on both sides. So the ability of a game developer to look and say, okay, I'm building this game and I want to have seamless transitions with no loading screens on PS5, but I'm also going to want to sell on Xbox. What am I going to do to manage that kind of thing? Like, that will be the tricks and techniques. So I am just making this up. Maybe there are elevators in the Xbox Series X version and not on the PS5 version. I don't know yet how they're going to address it, but they'll learn to address it and they will figure it out to work around it, end quote. So obviously somebody who works at Microsoft is going to defend the product that the company is working on, 99% of the time or whatever, without reason not to, even if he is with a different team. But having that reassurance of knowing someone who has had that experience working with that hardware, working with devs, knowing that devs will be able to still take full advantage of the tech that the Series X has, and that it is really, I guess, air quotes, flexible in how devs can approach their games development on that system with that hardware to get a similar experience across the board is definitely reassuring. So, Mike, where do you stand on really the differences in terms of these selling points we're hearing, these marketing buzzwords and these marketing pitches, between the two systems in terms of what they present from a hardware perspective, where the Series X clearly right now seems to provide the most raw power and graphical ability from a tech standpoint. It's pushing out the most power. It has the most quote-unquote teraflops, like all that jazz. So while the PS5 seems that it will be able to really natively provide a bit more streamlined and seamless experience from quality of life things like loading, like ease of access, things like that. Where do you stand on that? What really, I guess, clearly we're Xbox fans. Clearly we're planning on buying the Xbox console. Clearly we're planning on using the Series X and doing that. But, where do you stand with this tech? What, I guess, resonates with you more as just a gamer in general?
So you kind of described it perfectly. I consider all of these words and technology, kind of, for lack of a better term, I don't know how to really use, there's not a really good way to describe it. So I'll just say basically the nerd speak they use when they're talking about consoles. Mm-hmm. When we had Collins on the show a while back, he kind of tied it up really nice and neat with a bow, and basically said, these are buzzwords. These are things that the common consumer, and by common consumer, I mean 95% of the people that are going to be buying the new consoles have any clue what they're talking about. Mm-hmm. It's just fancy speak to try to get you to be like, oh, well, Xbox is going to be better. Well, PS5 is going to be better, blah, blah, blah. When it comes to things like this, basically these companies work out deals with manufacturers, and whatever they can get the best price on is how they kind of build the console from there. And in this case, I think it's like you said, I don't think there can really be a debate had. Microsoft Series X is going to be more powerful in terms of just raw power, basically every other aspect of their console besides the solid state drive. Now, when it comes to the solid state drive, PS5 did a great job focusing on the solid state drive, because I feel like it's definitely something that PlayStation users are going to enjoy, at least at first. Reason being, we've talked about this at length on the show. If you're a long-term listener, I won't bore you with the details because you've been around forever. But we've had talks and discussions about how PlayStation and Sony loves to focus on the cinematic experiences in their games, RPGs being their primary franchises. So when you have a beefy solid state that you're not going to have to wait on loading screens, and your RPG experience is going to be pretty much seamless, that's a big deal. As of right now, Series X is doing a great job trying to put themselves in a position where they're going to get back into the talks with RPG games. But as of right now, you still have to kind of put the edge in PlayStation's, on PlayStation's side, because, they have great franchises that they've been using since, PlayStation 3, and the solid state's going to make a big deal to those experiences. Personally, to me, I don't think it's if I had to guess, and this is clearly just speculation, so this isn't law or this isn't like accurate, 20% of gamers, less 10% of gamers would buy a system purely because it's a better console hardware wise. 90% of gamers buy consoles or computers based on their personal taste in games. So if there's someone who enjoys PlayStation games more, that's what they're going to buy. Like they could sell it's like the long, like perfect example, like Apple users versus Android users. Even though Samsung phones in particular years are better than iPhones, and most of the time it's usually pretty much every year it has better technology because it comes out a few months later and stuff. But Apple users are like, Apple could literally package a turd and Apple users are going to buy it day one.
Yeah.
It's just the way it is. That's the way it is with these consoles. And I think, truth be told, gearing up and making your console more powerful and being able to let game development studios unleash that power through story-driven RPG games is the only way you're going to start to take customers away from Sony. Producing a good Halo game that people want to play. Another way you can take people away from Sony. Like, Sony has done such a great job year over year at retaining customers and building a new customer base. Xbox has done a great job adding technology into their console that is going to make a difference. But as of right now, PlayStation fans are still just going to buy Sony because of the franchises that they have licensed to them. And the only way Xbox can ever hope to compete is produce better games. That's just the way it is.
No, indefinitely. It all comes down to the exclusive end to it, and I'm right there with you. Sony won this generation off the back of, one, clearly $100 price difference right at launch definitely helped that initial, boost. And granted, Microsoft literally shot themselves on the foot, like, ow, 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 why do I keep doing this? Like, with everything they said, with how they presented that box being an all-in-one entertainment system to a gaming audience that wanted, first and foremost, a gaming system. Saying, well, okay, well, yeah, that's all cool, but I'm buying this to play games. So the initial, right off the bat, the price and the presentation, everything too. But the main reason why is that it had killer apps. It had killer software on the PlayStation 4 compared to the Xbox One. The Xbox One didn't have killer apps this generation. It had great games in Ori, Cuphead, things like that. And, whether you like it or not, like, it's still reviewed pretty well. And, both of the Gears, Halo 5, like, things like that, they weren't necessarily maybe not up to the level that long-term fans and Xbox fans in general wanted, but they still reviewed decently well. But there was nothing like a God of War. There was nothing like a Spider-Man. There was nothing like an Uncharted 4. There's nothing like a Last of Us. There's none of those third-person, over-the-shoulder, action-adventure, cinematic experience, narrative game on the Xbox One. Really, exclusively, that you can only play on that, and that's what sold this generation in terms of physically moving boxes and things like that. And especially now that, and we're going to kind of get to it in, coming up in some of our news stories, that, now that crossplay is going to be, if not already almost, for the most part, a very common thing to find in all the games that are available. All third-party games, for the most part, are trying to at least explore finding ways to make crossplay work, whether it's just on, Xbox to PC and PS4 to PC, something like that. Like, it's still very much a real thing. But, outside of that, for that most part, now you're looking at a computer. So you can, because you could play whatever and still play with other friends. What's the real reason to buy those consoles? And it comes back to exclusives. And, so I'm right there with you. That's more on what, I'm in the camp of, hey, like you're saying, 90% of people are going to buy it based on their gaming habits, based on what they want to do with it, compared to, there's that small sect of really enthusiast level techies who are going to say, I just want to buy because it's the most powerful console on the market. Like, I bought my Series X Series X, yeah, I already got one. My Xbox One X, I bought it because it was on sale, and because I was like, cool, I can play a lot of my third-party games on it since I need to upgrade my PC at some point. Like, I know I'm going to get the best performance in 4K and whatnot on that, but it was because it was at a great deal. I don't know if I would do that necessarily right off the bat if I already had, since I already had an Xbox One S. So, you're speaking to a smaller audience where, clearly, I think, and realistically, I don't think the difference is going to be that big in terms of loading and that immersion level. And I'm saying this a day before us actually seeing PS5 gameplay. So who the hell knows? But I just think that you're going to, with third-party games, you're still going to get a pretty close experience between both consoles I just don't think it's going to ruin the immersion level so much that a PlayStation 5 owner is going to be able to hang it over an Xbox owner's head, or vice versa, an Xbox owner is going to say, oh, we got, look, we're able to get 5 more frames on one scene where you can't. No, it's like, dude, worry about making sure the game runs well, all the other stuff. People are able to actually experience the game that's put out, that the developer wants on your hardware, point blank, period. That's the most important thing. At an enjoyable fidelity and quality, but the polish and stuff after is kind of secondary. So, you get what I'm saying? Where it's like, I'm more in the camp with you, that it's like, all of this stuff, especially on the Microsoft end, that's great. Just got to back it up with the games again. You know what Sony's going to bring. And, rumor has it that, from what it sounds like, at least the initial launch lineup outside of, in launch window, I should say, outside of, the potential Horizon Zero Dawn 2, which will be a great, killer app for PlayStation right off the bat. But, it sounds like it's going to be a lot of remasters or re-releases, like a PS5 version, where hopefully in July, when we talk about it, and we see first-party titles from Xbox, we're getting more than just that. We're getting, Xbox gamers you're getting Halo Infinite, you're getting the Initiatives project within the first year, you're getting, whatever. You get what I'm saying? Whatever the Coalition's working on they've been working on a secret project, or, hey, we're going to see Obsidian's new game, and it's coming within the first 2 years, or yada yada. You're going to have more experiences right off the bat that are genuine next-gen experiences, not re-releases or, remasters. So, we'll see. It's all still up in the air, but, I lean more towards what you're saying, though, Mike. So, Mike, let's move on to the next news article here. Bungie outlines next 2 years of Destiny 2, says no plans to make another sequel. This comes from Nick Stat over on The Verge, as always. Link in the description to Nick's article. Game developer Bungie detailed the future roadmap of its sprawling online shooter Destiny 2 on Tuesday in a Twitch live stream packed with news about where the game is going this fall and how the studio plans to support it once Microsoft's and Sony's new consoles are out. Perhaps the biggest news was the announcement of not just 1, but 3 new major expansions, keeping the game active until at least 2022. Typically, Bungie's Destiny series was first launched back in 2014 as the first new property from the creator of Halo, has followed a somewhat consistent release cadence. It has involved smaller updates that are peppered in once every few months, all leading up to a major fall expansion. For Destiny 1, the cycle lasted 4 years. The same has stayed true for Destiny 2, which launched in 2017 and has 2 major fall expansions since, and a seasonal updated model that Bungie has been tweaking to find the right formula. That appears to be changing, at least in a big picture sense. Bungie rarely talked about its plans beyond the immediate year ahead, but game director Luke Smith announced today that Destiny 2 will see the Beyond the Light expansion this fall, releasing September 22nd, as well as The Witch Queen in 2021 and Lightfall in 2022. There are no release dates for those last 2 expansions, but we can't assume they'll also be in the fall, and Smith said Bungie will continue revamping how it keeps the game active and engaging in the months in between. All 3 expansion names were shown on screen as part of Destiny 2. So, while Bungie has not explicitly announced that it is not planning to release another proper sequel, which in turn forces many players to migrate to a new game and lose all their progress on the existing one, it does seem fairly certain that there is no Destiny 3 on the horizon, at least not until well after 2022. Although in a Q&A with streamer Ben Dr. Lupo, following the reveal, Smith said, "We're not planning to make one," when asked about another sequel. Players won't have to wait too long to start getting a taste of where Bungie is taking the game this fall. The seasonal update called The Season of Arrivals launches today, which was yesterday when this article came out, on all major platforms, and it will include a dungeon going live this evening and a series of story beats and activities that presumably transition the narrative towards Beyond Light in September. In addition to all of the expansion-related news, Bungie announced it would be supporting the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X consoles for Destiny 2, including free upgrades for current owners of the game on the platform they play on, and performance guarantees of 4K and 60 frames per second. So, if there's one thing, like I was kind of talking about before, that pushes me to actually commit to at least a small degree of my time to a quote-unquote live service title, it's really having that clear picture of what the future holds for the title. You know, what does the content look like in a few months when I've run through all the base game stuff? Are there any new updates or events coming in between those expansions? Stuff like that makes me want to buy into a game like Destiny, like Division, hell, even really Valorant, Siege, and more competitive titles. And even MMORPGs like WoW and things like that. They have consistent things keeping me wanting to invest my time in it. That short-sightedness almost that sometimes gamers do have, and rightfully so to an extent. So now that Activision is out of the picture, it seems like that information is going to be streamlined a lot faster to players. Do you think, Mike, and I know you don't really, play Destiny or anything like that, and I'm, like I talked about at the beginning of the show, never really up until now really wanting to try to get into it and, try it out, digging what I played the past couple days, do you think most major third-party publishers and their vision of communication to players in terms of the content they're putting out and whatnot are the things that hinder this kind of clear communication to players, the more direct communication from dev to, consumer, I guess? And do you think, just from you looking from the outside in, do you think Destiny will hold its weight into next gen as it makes its way onto its 3rd generation of consoles?
So the first part of the question is something that I'm gonna triple back to.
Okay.
Because
I'll buckle in, man. I know I got no problem taking a ride. I want to hear it all. Taking a road trip. Let me hear it.
So basically, the answer to is it going to hold its own weight? I think basically, like you said, when you get clear word from a developer, and like this is crystal clear of what the roadmap looks like for a game, especially a game like a game like Destiny that is produced by Bungie, and when they're just straightforward with you and tell you like this is what you can expect going forward with your game, like that to me, like you said, gives at least newer players that might be late to the game, like yourself, like me, if I was to consider playing it, it gives us a reason to play. Because like, obviously, like if we start putting time into it now and then they're like, oh, Destiny 3 coming out fall of 2021, like people aren't going to really want to play your game. You know what I mean? So I think with them committing to at least 2022 with Destiny 2 and all the expansions that are coming out, expanding the gameplay and everything, creating new content for people, I think that is going to give them quite a bit of staying power, because people still play Bungie, oh my god, come on. People still play a lot of Destiny to this day. And I think creating new content like this, obviously for everybody involved, is a win, because the player base wants new content, they fiend for new content, and they get bored of it. So on that token, like I do think this will give them staying power. Obviously, the main reason being their commitment to allowing or giving customers upgrades to their new console of preference, right? I think that's a big deal. I think that's something that people really need to look at from a standpoint of like, any game developer that offers this, just know that it's not something that's required. Going from Xbox One or Xbox 360 to Xbox One, no game devs did this. Even Xbox, the original Xbox to the 360, you had to repurchase the game if you wanted it again on the new console. So I think you need to be cognizant of this as a consumer and look and see which customer or which companies are backing their product and offering these upgrades. Because to be fair, it's not really the consumer's fault that a new console's coming out, and it's really not the developer's fault either. So they don't need to offer it. They could say buy it again for $60. But I think it does say a lot about a game dev studio when they're willing to pony up and pay that bill. As far as third party, like as far as your question about third party publishers and kind of muddying the waters, I think obviously anytime you have the option to just have a direct line of contact with your customers, that's probably best, especially in the gaming world. But it's clear, like, you know, with how open Bungie is being about Destiny, it's clear that there might have been some type of hindrance with Activision. I think, you know, when it comes to things of this nature, and this might be like stating the obvious, people might be like, well, duh. But no, I think it needs to be stated that, like, clearly, you know, Bungie wants to just be straight up and straightforward with you. And with them, with the lack of that in the past, it's clear that Activision may kind of muffle their devs. And, you know, with the Call of Duty franchise and everything, I think it's worth noting that, like, it's probably a reality and it's something that you really need to pay attention, like what's going on behind the scenes type deal. Not saying like there's shady stuff going on with Activision. I'm not going to make any crazy claims like that, but it's worth noting that let's kind of, now this is kind of like tinfoil hat type stuff, so you might want to get your conspiracy theory stuff out.
I told you, I'm buckled in for the ride, man. Let's hear it.
But when it comes to Activision, basically the thing that comes to mind is Bungie being free of Activision and how clear and forthright they're being with their customers of what they're going to produce next. And how there was a break in communication previous directly correlates to the state that Blizzard's in now. Not that Blizzard's like a disaster or anything. I mean, not that Blizzard is a complete and total disaster or anything, but compared to when they were on their own, like, you have to admit, like, the games might not quite be as good as what they used to be whenever Blizzard was on their own. And, you know, let's face it, the whole Hearthstone thing, like, we talked about that. Obviously, that's almost ancient news, which is kind of hard to believe. Like, time seems to just slip by. But basically, look what Activision has done with Blizzard. If you were a Blizzard fan pre-Activision merger, you know what I'm talking about. If you weren't, go play their classic games. Go play Warcraft 3, not this remastered bullshit they put out. Go play Diablo 2. Go play the old StarCraft. And obviously, you might be like, well, these games look so ugly. Of course they do compared to what it was, like, compared to now. But focus on the gameplay and focus on the storylines. Like, Blizzard went from doing whatever they wanted, producing great games, to kind of being muffled, being very political, especially when there's so many roots in China. It's just, you know, it can't be ignored at this point.
Yeah.
Like the political ramifications and everything.
Yeah, definitely. So, what you were saying about Activision is definitely 100%, you know, it was clearly the biggest issue that Bungie had going on with Destiny. And whenever they announced that in January 2019, hey, you know, the big split's coming between Activision and Bungie keeping Destiny and not letting it go to be just an Activision property, you know, and it really, you started to hear more about, like, this had been years in the making of you know, and granted, Bungie at that point, really, whenever they're wrapping up with Halo, has become a household name for the gaming community. Of people know they were starting to become one of those studios that, hey, you know what they make, how good, you know, what quality they put out, yada yada. Like, you just were very easily able to relate to who Bungie was and what they do and the quality and the caliber of doing. Oh, almost like you were saying, a Blizzard level quality product that you're putting out that you just know, and a lot of people were just ready to blindly buy a Bungie product, I think. And them staying independent, them staying, really without being quote-unquote owned by anybody, they wanted to have this project that they've been building for years, what Destiny 1 was, needing a publisher at that point. They couldn't go and self-finance it. They didn't have the cash revenue for that. But, them getting in bed with Activision, it definitely was, the right thing to do, I'm sure, at that time. But, I mean, it had been, and Jason Schreier talks a lot about it, really, in his article, and, what was going on with that whole split during then, that he had said this has been years in the making, that they've had a rocky relationship before even Destiny 1 shipped. So
it's also like, I don't mean to derail you, because I know you're on a roll, but I think it's also worth stating, like, clearly, like, Bungie's intentions after getting out from under Microsoft wasn't to immediately, like, get back with someone else, but like you said, 100%. it was a move out of necessity, which makes sense. And it also makes sense that the minute like they could get out from underneath someone else, when they didn't want to make Halo games anymore, like the minute that they were able to get out of the contract and move on to their own thing, they were going to do it. And like you said, Bungie as a studio wanted to make their own game, and they used Activision's money and basically like did what they had to do to survive. And I don't think they should ever, like, I don't think anyone should ever like look down on them for that. And I'm not saying you're saying that, but I just wanted to like touch on that. Like, if Bungie's going to move away from Microsoft and stop making basically the most influential game of the 2000s, then obviously they're not going to want to immediately get back into another deal, right?
Yeah. And I didn't include it in the read through that we were going through, like when I was going through the snippet of the article that I pulled out for the news breakdown. That one thing I didn't include is because it kind of got more into the nuances of what long-term players have been wanting and whatnot like that. But one of the things they're doing is they're doing this idea of a vault, because the game is getting kind of what you're seeing with Call of Duty Modern Warfare right now, since Warzone dropped and everything like that, where the file size is just getting asininely big. And granted, that's for probably a different reason, with Call of Duty being that the game probably isn't optimized very well, and they're just worried about getting it out and getting it stable on all platforms because it sells like wildfire and they have such a big player base, yada yada. But compared to Destiny, that's been going for multiple years and they've gone to that. But like, I think they were saying the PS4 file size, which I'm sure is very right on par with what Xbox is doing, but is at like 150 gigabytes right now. So they're starting to do this vault idea where they're going to be taking kind of like what Fortnite does with their weapons, in a sense, where they're pulling certain things out and they're vaulting it. Like older, like really older content that really isn't being touched by any players who come into it and yada yada. So they can still keep updating the game and giving actual like new content that is applicable and that is relevant, and leaving the stuff that is relevant for players who are still playing it on a very like constant basis, comparative, while also at the same time bringing in older content and bringing in like, hey, we're gonna funnel in Destiny 1 content at some time, at some point you're gonna get to go back to these locations that you played. And it really made me think, and you bringing up being one of the most influential games of the 2000s or of the 2010s, that it's like, yeah, it was, because I always think that Destiny isn't that old, but Destiny launched almost 6 years ago now, and
right.
It's crazy that even then that doesn't feel like a lot, and it really isn't. 6 years isn't a long ass time for a franchise, but what they've been able to accomplish in so long, in only a 6-year period, like, I really, and the popularity that the game still has, and the weight that it still holds, especially now that them going with, whenever the Shadowkeep update was planned and whatnot to come out as the first real, expansion post Activision, that, and the transparency that they've had with their community since then, and being able to have that, like, the fluidity to go out and just say, hey, fuck it, we're going to do this because that's what we want to do. We don't have to worry about answering to somebody now because we have the cash revenue to back up production. We'll be stable now. Like, we don't have to worry about production needs necessarily. Like, we have enough, assets to keep us afloat. But, it's crazy to think that they've accomplished that much that, like, it feels like this generation or this decade's World of Warcraft. Like, there's so many parallels anymore that I see with Bungie and Blizzard, for good or bad, that, hopefully in some instances history doesn't repeat itself, but, that it's starting to get to that point where Destiny is not going anywhere, clearly. Like, Destiny is going to be a big-time franchise for the foreseeable future, and I'm actually shocked that, and like I said, for the most part, I'm like you, like, outside looking in still for the most part. I was shocked that they didn't drop the 2 yesterday and just go Destiny. Like, hey, like, I was shocked, to be quite honest. I'm more shocked now than I was then, but I was surprised they didn't do it whenever they first split with Activision and they first revealed New Light, the kind of the re-emerging of Destiny 2, and not have it go just be Destiny, because the way they made it sound was like World of Warcraft, where there's no World of Warcraft 2. They were just going to, like, the 10-year plan that they always talk about, that Activision and them had for this game. That, what is it? Don't die.
Yeah. Big Daddy reference.
The fucking Big Daddy. Yeah.
For those of you that might know,
he's got a 10-year plan. He's got a 20-year plan. What? Don't die. Fucking. I love that you pulled that out. That's so great. But yeah, pretty much. What? Don't die. But you hear about this 10-year plan that it's like, I know, and they're very clear, they're tongue-in-cheek with how they're saying it, but, like, they didn't want a 2. They didn't want a Destiny 2. They didn't want a sequel. They didn't want their player base split up like that, because that creates that divide. And almost like in a sense, 1.6 versus CSGO that they had. 1.6 versus Source. Like, stuff like that, where it's like...
1.6 versus Source was huge, and especially, like, we were talking about, like, esports wise too,
right,
which isn't really relevant to this debate, but no, like,
but the sense definitely. Of where you're almost to a sense where your fan base, for the majority of it, doesn't necessarily want that. They like what they have here, build upon this, not move to a whole new engine and whatnot and change the game dramatically. Like, so I get it, but clearly they're on a much better track right now. I think, because of clearly already we're seeing with their split from Activision, that they're much more transparent. They're much more forward-facing about where they're going with that, because they don't have to answer to anybody. They only have to answer to themselves, and that could be good or bad with sales and whatnot, but in this case, it's very good, because all the things that they were trying to do with this title to keep it alive, keep it moving forward, and keep it evolving is, they were able to communicate that with their audience directly, which is one of the most important things in modern video games, especially any game that's a live service. Anything that is continuously, knock on wood, evolving, you got to be able to sell it on a day-to-day basis, because anybody can leave to go then play something else, So, and the gaming industry is always a much, especially us who, like, cover games and things like that, where it's like, traditionally me, like, I'm moving on to a lot of things. Like, a new game comes out that I want to play, I'm playing that. Okay, what's next? Type of thing. Like, I don't stick with games a lot. Like, I like to play a lot of things. So, you got to do these things for people like me, and especially a lot of people, But, for long-term Destiny fans, it seems like this is all great news, and hopefully I get to experience a lot of it. I'm excited to, keep playing more of it. But, Mike, let's head into our last news article for today. And us talking about this, it's more what's being done than what the actual game is, but I'll shut up and just get into it. Need for Speed Heat. Crossplay to be added in game's final update, and it will be the first EA game to do so. This comes from Wesley LeBlanc via IGN, As always, link in the description. EA and Criterion Games have announced that Need for Speed Heat will become the first EA game to feature crossplay. Criterion Games General Manager Matt Webster posted a letter on EA's official site explaining that after an update coming to the game on July 9th, Need for Speed Heat will be the first EA title ever to feature crossplay access across PC, PlayStation 4, and Xbox One. Webster said in the update that it will be the game's last, and as the team is working on the next title in the Need for Speed franchise. Quote, "We're so thrilled to let all of you know that on June 9th, Need for Speed Heat will be the first EA title to offer crossplay, meaning that players, regardless of their platform, can jump into Palm City together as one united community," Webster said. As we at Criterion shift gears into the future, we'll put full focus on developing the next Need for Speed game. This will be the final update for Need for Speed Heat. Webster said that since the launch of the game last year, the team has been listening to what players love about the game and what they believe could make it better, all in an effort to create, quote, "the most expressive, socially connected, action-packed game yet for Need for Speed fans and beyond." He said to keep an eye out at EA Play live on June 18th for additional Need for Speed announcements. So it feels like EA has really been the last big shoe to fall when it comes to crossplay, with so many third-party publishers, like we were talking about before, emphasizing the want and even need for some franchises to open up crossplay, to make sure no matter what, even if it's just Xbox or PS4 to PC, a one-to-one type thing, not necessarily across all platforms, but crossplay in some sort of how really they want to do that or need to do that in some cases to keep player bases active and up and keep the game afloat. So Mike, with how focused EA has been on really, and clearly to some degree, the bottom line in getting games shipped, they're more worried about making sure a game gets out the door and they'll fix it on the back end type of deal, and more worried about bringing more revenue in. It seems like I don't think I'm that, thinking radically saying that, or I'm that off base.
I don't think anyone's going to disagree with you.
No. So really, with their focus on that bottom line this generation, do you think this is more of a, let's just put a toe in the water, let's just do it on this game to show people, hey, we're doing it, we're gonna try it out and see how it goes type of deal, and just see where it goes from here? Or is this hopefully just one of many titles that to start to position themselves to do cross-platform play out of the multiple, catalog of franchises? We're talking Battlefield, we're talking Battlefront, we're talking like all of these major titles, Mass Effect in the future, Dragon Age in the future, that probably will have some kind of multiplayer integration to it, because that means more money at the end of the day, and you're able to charge, microtransactions for different things across there. So, with a lot of these huge titles that EA has, and more, even thinking too, crossplay with Apex eventually, potentially. So, do you think this is more of a, we're just going to do it on this smaller title that isn't really in, isn't the one people are clamoring for or whatnot? We're going to do it on here just to say we're doing it? Or do you think this is, okay, we're going to start moving forward with this. We're going to let people who play Madden on PS4 play with Xbox, starting next year, or yada yada. Is this the start of something bigger, I guess?
I think the one thing that everyone can agree on when it comes to EA is they run their operation like a corporation.
Very much so.
That is inarguable. I don't think anyone can stand on any ground other than, EA's in it to make money. Mm-hmm. Does that mean they're soulless? Does that mean there aren't good people working there? Like, I'm not making any of those claims. Unfortunately, I feel like I just need to, just throw that out there, because I just don't want it being taken out of context. Basically what I'm trying to say is, like, EA is run like a business. And when businesses are focused on making money, they always ask themselves, what's the next thing that I can do to make the most amount of money and spend the least amount of money doing it? Basically, when it comes to crossplay, it really makes sense for EA to get involved. So I don't see why people can't play Madden against each other that are all on Xbox or PlayStation. It just doesn't make any sense to me. And if I have a bunch of friends that play PlayStation, and they play Madden or NHL.
Mm-hmm.
And I love Halo or other Xbox games. Therefore, I never want to buy a PlayStation, but I don't have anyone to play NHL with or Madden in this. Like, we'll just, use Madden too. Like, if I don't have anyone to play with, I'm not going to buy that game.
Yeah.
So I have an Xbox, and I'm not buying a PlayStation just to play NHL with my friends. Like, that's not an option either.
Mm-hmm.
So clearly the answer is, why can't I just play with them? It's the same game. Like, nothing's being changed. It's just a console. So it basically, what it looks like they're going to try to do, and what makes sense is what any business would do, and try to maximize their profits. And how do you do that? You let people play whatever, like any game on whatever console they want with anyone they want on any console. It just makes sense, right?
Right.
So basically, I think it's a sign of things to come, because it just makes money. Like, if it was something that didn't make money, I would be like, yeah, EA's not going to do that. But just when it comes down to dollar and cents, it makes sense, and that's, it makes more than sense. It's going to make them a lot of dollars, and that's why they're going to do it. But I will toss this in there just to kind of stir up the crowd, if you will. At least you. The PC player base, as far as like if you're a hockey fan, just hasn't had a hockey game to play. Like, there's just no option. I can't play hockey if I'm on PC, period.
I mean, really, outside of, well, now they're bringing Madden back to PC, but outside of 2K, that's it. Like, there's not really any, like, sports games in general, like, don't thrive on PC. It's a very, console-oriented experience, which I get. Right. But, like, there should still be, we used to have options, like, gaming, and like right now, like in general in the gaming industry, it's all about accessibility for all players, not just like, I'm not talking accessibility necessarily from, which is a very important thing to make, like that is a very important emphasis currently, but I'm not talking necessarily, accessibility for, disabilities and things like that, like players who need extra help to just physically play a game, but I'm talking about accessibility from a standpoint of like you being able to play on whatever platform, like how much of an emphasis that's been going on this generation, and how much of like people are like game developers and publishers too, and even hardware manufacturers are pushing like, we're just wanting you to play games, and we're trying to make it as easy as possible for you to do so across all platforms that are supported, but not sports titles, it seems like. Right.
Basically, what I'm trying to say is, with Madden coming to play to computer and them working on crossplay, I think this might be the first year we see NHL make the jump back to computer. I think that'll be big news-worthy things happening, and I think with hockey, because if they do it with football, I know hockey's gotten like basically no love. They never get any love, and same with like, basically, like, I think FIFA, Madden, and hockey will all be cross-platform, and I'm hoping, like, FIFA's definitely has to make its way to console. Soccer's the biggest sport, or PC. Soccer's the biggest sport in the world. It has to be on there. I think hockey might make that jump too.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah. So it's crazy to think that, I don't know, it's just crazy to think that this is the first EA title that could have been done this way. And it could have been, that could have actually like gotten crossplay support. That's why like I'm hesitant to think that hey, this is the start of something new, start of something new for EA, and focused on giving players more accessibility and whatnot, like we've been talking about. And even so, you look back at titles, like they've had a much better track rate than usual for their past, this past year, where you had the success of Apex Legends and how much people love that. And granted, this is all stuff coming from one development studio within your catalog, but, Apex Legends, Jedi Fallen Order, the rebound of Battlefront 2 for Star Wars Battlefront 2, and how people, like, it has a really good community right now because the game's in a really good place. And they were able to, like, slowly bring that game back from the dead and back from that crippling fucking disaster that it had of a launch. So, I'm starting to see trends in the right direction, but I will always be hesitant of EA, because for the past how many years now, it's just been, they're more worried about how can we bleed players for what they have. Like, how is, Like we've gotten
leeches.
60, yeah, we've gotten $60 out of you. Can we get 120? You know, type of deal. Like, and
Yeah.
and I'm not saying that from a like, hey, you know, and I've been in the camp for a long time that, to be quite honest, we're paying less than we should be paying for video games right now. Like, we're making, in all reality, we probably should be paying around $80 to buy a game because of how much, you know, development costs are going up. But luckily, it's been able to stay in that range of $60 right now for this past 10 years or so plus. So it's been, you know, I'm just shocked that we haven't seen more, but at the same time, I'm not shocked, and I hope I'm trying to look at, you know, the glass half full and whatnot, but you know, it's at the end of the day, it's EA, and you know, if there's one third party publisher that really has dropped the ball and really will continue to drop the ball, and the only way they can turn it around in my eyes, they come out and they completely redo, like they're rumored to be doing right now, and they may have actually announced that it's officially happening, but like a rebrand and a re-reveal of Anthem, like not from the ground up, but like overhauling a lot of that game and presenting it again and trying, you know, like a No Man's Sky type of situation where they went back and, you know, went and made a No Man's Sky Beyond update that re-brought the game to life for the most part, and people love it, you know. So something like that where they show their commitment to a game like that, and they come out and let BioWare be BioWare with a stellar Dragon Age and a stellar Mass Effect. Like, BioWare should be that one studio that you never have to worry about. They should be, and they were on the trajectory to be that at one point, how Blizzard was at one point, how really...
Bethesda?
Yeah, Bethesda. And really how, like, a lot of their fans, a lot of From Software fans look at, like, anything From Software puts out, they're going to buy. Like a Sekiro, like a Dark Souls, like a Bloodborne, anything like that. Like, it's kind of blind faith now, and that's how BioWare should be. But you know, I guess, you know, money talks on their end, and that's why they want to get in bed with EA, which I get. It's hard. You got to have money to make these games, especially to bring the visions that you have as a creative. That's one thing you kind of have to swallow. You know, that's a little bit of that pride, I guess, you have to swallow. That knowing that, fuck, if I want to put this game out and we want to have the actual vision come to life for this game, it is what it is. We gotta take that money, you know. So, and that's even with Destiny. We're talking about Destiny. They have
exactly.
They have that. They got financed by NetEase, and it's like, that's a Chinese company that dumped a ton of money into them, and that helps them out. But they're giving them their freedom to do whatever. So, you know, that may turn out to be good, but who the hell knows? You know, it's so early to know about that. So, I don't know. I hope this is, you know, fingers crossed that, you know, June 18th comes around, they talk about next-gen stuff coming around, and it's all positive things, and, you know, I don't know. We'll see. But
even though we have differing opinions, because it's EA, I have no ground to talk on, like, to stand on to try to, like, counter your claims. Like, they have done such a horrendous job year over year that even though maybe it's, like, blind hope and faith, but, like, I can't even disagree with you. Like, even though I really think it is, like, their crossplay is going to happen strictly because of dollars and cents, I can't argue with you that it's not going to happen because EA sometimes seems like they're fucking clueless.
Yeah. No, definitely. And I mean, I do have a little more, you know, optimism, at least seeing how they're handling DICE in their studio situation now, moving Vince Zampella from Respawn, acknowledging, you know, how great he's been handling that studio and the projects that have come out of there. They've been the shining spot for EA when they've created a new IP in Titanfall, put out Titanfall 2, which is one of the most underrated games this generation in terms of a first-person shooter, to then making Apex Legends, to then making the both critically acclaimed Apex Legends and Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. So them wanting to move, acknowledging the value and talent he has, and moving them to DICE to potentially handle, you know, Battlefield or anything that comes out through DICE LA and what they're going to do. You know, they're at least acknowledging these things. So, fingers crossed. I don't know. Mike, let's move into party chat as we wrap up, as we're kind of crunched on time here a little bit. But for those of you who have been listening for all 50 episodes, or longer or anything, Party Chat, we're bringing it back. Brought it back a couple weeks ago, bringing it back now. But we're putting a little bit of a twist on it. We're going to propose one question each week at the end of the show that we want to discuss. Could be as simple as what's your favorite story beat, or from a game, or what have you been playing during quarantine, or it could be more in depth as to why the negative stigma around gaming still exists. And really after answering it ourselves, we're going to kick it over to you to tweet and or comment on the YouTube version your responses to the question over on our Twitter at GPGC Podcast or youtube.com/GPGC Podcast. And we'll read some of those responses the following week. So last week's question, with how much money Microsoft has, what IP or even publisher would you like to see them acquire? This could be serious or far-fetched. And we kind of went around a little bit with it, but I thought Amit Kumar Padhand over on the YouTube comments really summed it up well across the multiple responses we got that really kind of put it all into one. So he says Xbox should acquire these studios: Asobo Studio, Bungie, Crytek, Moon Studio, Techland, Remedy Entertainment, and a Japanese AAA studio. Which he kind of nailed the head on a lot of what people were responding and even what we said. So, and I know, Mike, you would love that. I knew you would love the Bungie response. Well, he definitely listened all the way till the end of the show, and
he's right. And I think he is I think everyone that's saying Bungie means it from a serious manner. Mm-hmm. The disservice they did to Halo that I love so much is it's basically just troll fuel.
Yeah.
But being objective about it, he's right on the head. Bungie is someone that Microsoft should look at and say, hey, we might have had a little bit of a weird breakup, but we want to kind of fund you and let you do you, boo boo. And yeah. I think that'd be great. But continue.
No, definitely, and definitely agree with him. Moon Studio, I'm shocked that and they may have already tried to sign them with the studio that created Ori and the Will of the Wisps and Blind Forest. Shocked that they haven't actually come to an agreement, and that may just be Moon wanting to stay independent. So Techland as well with the Dying Light franchise, and Remedy. I keep hearing rumors about Remedy being signed, potentially going to Sony as a first-party studio eventually, but who knows? But I definitely 1000% agree with the Japanese AAA studio, or at least signing a publishing agreement with one. I would love to see them lock in From Software, or at least the exclusive rights to the Dark Souls franchise, or some shit like that. So definitely a great answer. I think that encompasses a lot of the answers we got in general. So real quick, Mike, this week's question, it's kind of almost multiple choice, I guess, but you can give a little response to it, I guess. What is more important to see what is more important to see at the all right, let me start. So Mike, this week's question, what is more important to see at what now appears to be Microsoft's next event revealed or related to the Series X, which is going to be the July event that we're talking about? Halo Infinite's gameplay, the Initiative's project that they have been working on, or the price of the console? What do you think is more important we see from there? Halo Infinite's gameplay, the Initiative's next first project, or the price of the Xbox Series X?
For me, it's definitely a situation where, as painful as it is for me to admit this, and this sucks so bad, but I think the ship has kind of sailed on Halo being the end all be all with Xbox and Microsoft. So with that being said, and I've gone on at length on this show and about why I believe that is, and basically without some type of miracle with Halo Infinite, that's going to be the case. I just think in general, people have moved on. People will still play the Master Chief Collection as long as it works, because they will want to get that nostalgia factor. But 343 doesn't want to, retread old tires, basically. They don't want to constantly invoke that nostalgia with classic gameplay. And, it's their freedom, their creative freedom, whatever they really want to do. But for me, it's 100% has to be the Initiative's project is the utmost important thing, because whatever they price their console at, you'd have to think it's going to be at least what Sony has done. but it seems like it'll probably be less, right? Is that like, am I hearing that correctly?
What's that? So
That Xbox's console should be cheaper than Sony's pretty much regardless.
I mean, a lot of people are saying that Microsoft could potentially undercut Sony with that.
Yeah.
It's not out of the question. Like, me personally, I don't think there's a chance that this thing's under $500, but who the hell knows? I mean, they could just come out and say, say for some reason Sony reveals, and granted people are going to know by the time this goes live, but tomorrow at the PlayStation 5 game reveal event, they show the box and they just say it's $599 or $599 or $499 or something like that, and Microsoft comes out and says, at their event they say, okay, we're going $399. We'll take the $100 hit or something.
I think it'll be like 50. I think what they'll do is, like, if Sony says they're going to be 550, I think the Xbox will launch at 5.
Yeah.
Or like, this is like even more petty. You're talking about like they could decide to choose to launch at like 529 just to be under. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. I mean, you never know, and it really, if at the end of the day, if the services and the software and everything that we see at that July event back up what if we leave that July event and you say, okay, I just saw the reason why I should buy an Xbox Series X. Because right now, I mean, I think the box is great. I think it speaks to a much wider range than the Xbox One does right now. Even, I mean, it speaks to casual players in terms of, cool, I don't have to, if I buy a game now, I don't have to worry about rebuying it again because, like, I only buy a couple games a year. It speaks to the enthusiasts who love that. Hey, this is going to be the most powerful console, yada yada. It speaks to PC players who say, yeah, I want to get a console that, a secondary. I mainly play PC, but I want to have a secondary console. This speaks to that too, where you're getting a similar quality and you're getting some upgradability with it in terms of being able to upgrade its SSD and things like that. So it's the scalability, I guess, that falls into it. So I just hope we leave that event saying, yo, that's the reason to buy a PlayStation or a Xbox Series X, and a price could be that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You never know.
For sure, but I think people are looking for a franchise or a game to kind of latch onto. I don't feel like Halo Infinite is that anymore. Now, this is like, that's me being somewhat of a pessimist. You're talking about, like, if it comes out and the game just looks so good and it looks like classic Halo, like, then maybe you can start talking about it, because it is going to be on computer too. I think that's like, with it being on PC too, I think that might hurt the, that kind of reach a little bit. But for me, it's definitely the Initiative's project. I'm just curious to hear about your thoughts on it.
Yeah, and you saying that too, like, it's going to be interesting to see how Microsoft really talks about statistics and numbers whenever they're talking the Xbox family of systems really next gen, all next gen, because of how committed they are to doing dual releases for their first party titles, saying, hey, it's coming on Xbox and PC. That maybe we don't hear, like, we're definitely going to hear, number of consoles sold and whatnot like that, but I guarantee we're going to hear first and foremost about, we have now 5 million players on Xbox, or on Xbox Game Pass right now. Or we have 10 million players who are subscribed who have played Halo Infinite. Where, cool, 70% of that may be on PC because, people who are playing first-person shooters probably want to play those on PC. So, if you ask me, short-term, Halo Infinite gameplay, because that's your launch title, that's what they're positioning. Hey, when you buy that box, day one, I guarantee, like, I don't want to guarantee because who the hell knows, but I feel very strongly that anybody who buys an Xbox Series X is going to get, like, a month free or a 14-day pass of Xbox Game Pass included with it. Like, and now that may be for new subscribers or whatever, but anybody who buys that box is probably going to have the ability to play Halo Infinite no matter what, whether you buy it physical, digitally, or whatever. Like, people, that is the software that's going to be loaded into that day one, period. So they're positioning that to sell and move hardware. So, okay, well, we haven't seen any gameplay for it. Probably should have seen that, maybe about 6 months to a year ago.
I mean, considering we should have saw. We really should have saw it
we should have saw it last year at E3.
Yes.
So, and I won't drag on that too long, but we definitely should have seen that last year at E3. But if you ask me, because of that, that's more important. Right behind it is the Initiatives project. If I'm being honest, price is important, clearly, but I think most people have an idea of what they're paying for these consoles as it is. The only way that I think people are going to be shocked is if it's undercut, like in a good way, where it's like, I think most people are preparing for these consoles to be around $500. Mm-hmm. So, if it's undercut, that's when I think people are going to be like, oh, okay, cool. Like, that's outside that, people are going to be like, oh, okay, I figured it's probably going to be that much. So, if you ask me, it kind of, the way that it's listed in the show, how I add Halo Infinite, gameplay, initiative project, and price of the console, the more I think about it, that's kind of how I rank them, but I think Halo Infinite, just because it's the most important, like, that's being billed as, this is the system seller, this is what we're trying to move these consoles with on day one, is Halo Infinite. Buy into this so you can play Halo Infinite, and guess what? We still haven't seen Halo Infinite. So, after all of that, now it's your turn. We want to hear what you have to say about that. So let us know in the comments of the YouTube version of the podcast, or on Twitter at GPGC Podcast, to have your response read like Amit did on this episode. So with that being said, I think that's going to do it for our episode this week. Mike, where can people find you to talk about all the things we talked about today and all of the nerdy video game stuff we like to talk about? Where can people find you on the interwebs?
You can find me on Twitter at Toy Soldier, and the second O is going to be an X. That's TOYSXLDIER. And you can find me on Twitch at MP_Toy Soldier.
Nice. And as always, I'm your host, Travis Wade, aka Travelus, on most internet platforms, including Twitter at Travelus_, that's TRAVLESS_. You'd also find me streaming time to time on twitch.tv/Travelus_, same as Twitter. And if you want to play some video games with me, you can do so by finding me on Xbox Live. And really, like I said, every platform for the most part now. But more specifically, we don't talk about him. I don't know who you're talking about. You can find me on pretty much every platform, including Xbox Live, at Travelus, just regular Travelus. That's TRAVLESS, no underscore. So, that being said, this has been your newest episode of the Game Pass Gamecast, your weekly go-to podcast for all things Xbox, Xbox Game Pass, and PC gaming, including news, rumors, and conversation around them damn good video games. You can catch new episodes of the show when they drop each and every Friday morning on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, and all other major podcast services. So, be sure to subscribe to us, rate us, follow us, review us, all that jazz, wherever you get a podcast at, and follow us on Twitter at GPGC Podcast. Stay up to date with everything regarding the show, video games alike, and our dope giveaways, which we do have some planned in the coming future, and it might revolve around a certain anniversary that we have coming up. I don't know. That's what the rumor mills say. That's why I read on Reset Era, and I'm the bad boy Reset Era, got what was that, like a week ban or something like that? I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm just a bad boy, With that being said, though, Mike, I think that's going to do it for our show this week. Thank you, everyone, for listening, sharing, and being a part of our growing community. Game on, wash your hands, listen to doctors, all that jazz. Be smart. We're still in a pandemic. No matter what's going on, Black Lives Matter. And we will see you next week.